He wanted a son. He left the woman who could not give him one. Then he threw a party to humiliate her in front of the world. He wrote on the invitation, "Come see what a real family looks like." He thought she would arrive broken and in tears. He thought she would finally admit that he had been right to abandon her. He was wrong about every single thing. This is the story of a millionaire who mocked his ex-wife for something she could never control. And this is the story of what she brought to his party that made him beg for mercy. Before we go deeper into this story, if you enjoy powerful emotional stories like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Here are 3 things you need to understand before we go any further. Number 1, the doctors told Lena Mason she could never have children. Number 2, her husband Richard believed them and left her for a younger woman who gave him a son. Number 3, Lena showed up to his son's birthday party with something that proved the doctors wrong in a way no one could have imagined. Those 3 facts are the spine of everything that follows. But the details in between will change how you think about pride, revenge, and the quiet strength of people who have been counted out. Richard Mason thought he had won. He had the mansion, the new wife, the heir, and the gold invitations. He thought Lena would walk through his gates with her head down. Instead, she walked through with her head high and a secret that would burn his empire to ash. Richard Mason met Lena when they were both 28. He was a real estate developer. She was a nurse. They married within a year. For the first 3 years, they tried for children. Nothing happened. Lena suggested a fertility specialist. The doctor ran tests on both of them. He sat them down and said, "Lena, your ovarian reserve is extremely low. The chances of conceiving naturally are less than 5%. Richard said nothing. Lena reached for his hand. He pulled away. The doctor also suggested further testing for Richard, just to be thorough. For a brief moment, Richard wondered if the problem could be his, but he buried the thought. He refused the tests and never went back. He chose to believe Lena was the problem. That decision would cost him everything. Richard Mason did not handle bad news well. He was a man who had built a fortune by refusing to accept failure. But this was different. He could not buy his way out of this. He could not negotiate or threaten or charm his way into a pregnancy. He started to pull away from Lena. He worked longer hours. He stayed out later. He stopped kissing her goodbye in the morning. Lena tried everything. She researched every fertility treatment available. She went to 3 more doctors, each one telling her the same thing. She came home with pamphlets about in vitro fertilization, egg donation, surrogacy. Richard would glance at them and say, "We will talk about it later," but later never came. He started sleeping in a separate bedroom. Lena cried alone most nights. She still loved him. She believed his distance was just grief, that he would come back to her when he processed the news. She was wrong. The affair with Victoria began quietly. Victoria was a marketing consultant hired to rebrand Richard's company. She was 29 years old, ambitious, and very aware of Richard's wealth. She did not ask about his wife. She did not care. They had dinner to discuss a new logo. That dinner turned into a second dinner. That second dinner turned into a hotel room. Richard told himself he deserved happiness. He told himself Lena had failed him. He told himself that a man with his money and status needed an heir, and if his wife could not provide one, he had every right to find someone who could. He never once considered that he might be the problem. He never went back to the doctor for a second opinion. He just assumed the infertility was Lena's fault, because that was easier to believe than the alternative. Lena found out about Victoria on a Tuesday. She came home early from work and saw a pair of designer heels by the front door. She heard laughter from the bedroom. She stood in the hallway for a full minute, her hand on the wall, her heart pounding. She did not scream. She did not cry. She walked back out the front door, got in her car, and drove to the beach where they had their first date. She sat on the sand until midnight. When she came home, Richard was asleep. The heels were gone. The next morning, she asked him directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" He did not deny it. He said, "It is not what you think." But he did not explain what it was either. He just looked at her with cold eyes and said, "We need to talk about divorce." The divorce was brutal. Richard hired the most aggressive lawyer in Los Angeles. He wanted to give Lena as little as possible. He accused her of being unable to fulfill her duties as a wife. He said it was her fault they had no children. He brought up her failed fertility treatments in court documents, using her private pain as a weapon. Lena did not fight back. She hired a small lawyer who worked from a strip mall. She asked for nothing except the house they had bought together, a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. Richard fought her on that too. In the end, she got the house and a small monthly payment for 5 years. She signed the papers on a Friday. Richard married Victoria the following Saturday. Lena did not attend the wedding. She was too busy throwing up in her bathroom, though not from sadness. The morning of her divorce finalization, Lena had been feeling strange for weeks. Tired all the time, nauseous in the mornings. She assumed it was stress. She assumed her body was collapsing under the weight of her failing marriage, but a friend convinced her to take a pregnancy test. She bought the test at a pharmacy near her house. She took it in her own bathroom alone with the door locked. The test came back positive. She did not believe it. She took another one. Positive again. She drove to a clinic and demanded a blood test. The nurse drew her blood and told her to wait. Lena sat in the waiting room surrounded by magazines about celebrity bobbies. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to call Richard and scream at him. She did none of those things. The doctor called her into his office an hour later. He sat down and said, "Lena, you are pregnant." She started to cry, then he said, "But there is something else. There are 4 heartbeats. You are carrying quadruplets." Lena stopped breathing. She looked at the ultrasound screen, 4 small shapes, 4 flickering lights, 4 lives growing inside her at the exact moment her husband was signing papers to leave her. She asked the doctor if he was sure. He showed her again. 4 separate sacs, 4 bobbies. He told her that quadruplet pregnancies were extremely rare and extremely high risk. He told her she would need bed rest, specialists, and a lot of help. Lena had no help. She had no husband. She had a small house, a tiny divorce settlement, and a job that barely paid the bills. And she had 4 children on the way. She spent 3 weeks deciding whether to tell Richard. She drove past his new house once. She saw him laughing with Victoria on the porch. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, her hand on her belly. She decided not to tell him. He would not believe her. He would accuse her of lying. He would make her life a battlefield. So she told no one except her mother. That decision would remain a secret for 10 years. The pregnancy was dangerous. Lena was 40, carrying 4 bobbies. She was hospitalized twice. Her mother moved in to help. She could not work after the 5th month. Her savings evaporated. She talked to her belly at night, telling the 4 tiny people inside that she would fight for them. The quadruplets were born on a rainy December morning. Michael came first, then David, then Sarah, then Emily, each one less than 4 pounds. They spent weeks in the NICU. Lena slept on a plastic chair, pumping milk every 2 hours. They came home one by one. 4 cribs lined the living room. For 10 years, Lena raised those 4 children by herself. She worked night shifts as a nurse. She cut coupons, bought second-hand clothes. Michael learned to read at 4. David was a natural athlete. Sarah loved to draw. Emily made everyone laugh. They had no idea their father was a millionaire living in Beverly Hills. Lena told them their father was not part of their lives. They had each other. They had their mother. They were happy. Meanwhile, Richard Mason's life looked perfect from the outside. Victoria gave him a son, Brandon, 9 months after the wedding. Richard threw a party that cost $500,000. He posted photos on social media with captions about family legacy. He told everyone who would listen that he finally had what he always wanted. But the marriage to Victoria was not happy. She married him for money, and he knew it. They argued constantly. She spent his fortune on shopping and plastic surgery. Brandon grew into a spoiled child who talked back to everyone. Richard looked at his life sometimes and felt empty. He did not understand why. He had the son, he had the money, he had the mansion, but something was missing. He decided that missing thing was revenge against Lena. He wanted to prove to her and to the world that he had been right to leave her. The idea came when Brandon turned 10. He ordered 200 gold invitations. Each cost $15. He wrote, "Come see what a real family looks like." He sealed one for Lena and had it express delivered. He did not know that Lena had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Lena opened it. She read the words. For a long moment, she just stood there. Then she walked to the bedroom where her children were sleeping. They were 10 years old, the same age as Brandon, 4 faces with Richard's eyes and her smile. She made a phone call to a lawyer named Margaret Chen. Margaret had legally collected DNA samples from Richard's personal items. The test confirmed he was the father. Margaret also prepared a lawsuit for back child support. But she did not serve the papers before the party. Lena wanted to confront Richard in person. Patricia Caldwell, a famous blogger with 2 million followers, had already been invited to cover the party. Lena simply made one call and told her she had a story worth filming. Patricia agreed. May 14th arrived. Lena dressed her children in simple clothes. She drove them to Beverly Hills. She pulled up to the Gold Gates at 2:15. The party was in full swing. Music, champagne, 200 guests. Richard stood by the pool holding Brandon's hand. Victoria smiled in a white silk dress. Patricia's camera crew was everywhere. The gates opened. Lena stepped out first, then Michael, then David, then Sarah, then Emily, 4 children, identical, holding hands. Richard's smile froze. The music stopped. The guests turned. For a moment, no one said anything. The silence was absolute. Lena walked toward Richard. She stopped 3 feet from him. She looked him directly in the eye and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Richard, I want you to meet your children. Michael, David, Sarah, and Emily. All yours. Conceived the month before you filed for divorce. You left me 1 week before my first ultrasound. I did not tell you because you did not deserve to know." Richard's face turned white. He stammered, "That is not possible. You could not have children." Lena pulled out the DNA test. "Certified laboratory, you are the father of all 4. She handed it to him. His hands were shaking. He looked at the children. Michael whispered, "Mom, is that our dad?" Lena said, "Biologically, yes, but a real father shows up. He never did." She turned to Richard. "You invited me to see what a real family looks like. Here I am. My children have never missed a meal. They know they are loved. What do your children know about you?" Victoria stepped backward, pulling Brandon with her. Someone dropped a champagne glass. The sound of breaking glass echoed across the pool. The party ended within 30 minutes. Guests left in silence. Patricia's video went viral within hours. Millionaire Mocked trended #1. As for Victoria, she did not scream. She did not argue. She did not defend Richard. That same night, while the internet was still exploding with the video, she sat in their bedroom scrolling through the comments. Millions of people calling Richard a liar, a cruel man, a disgrace. She closed her phone, looked around the mansion, and made a decision. 4 days later, she filed for divorce. Not quietly, not privately. Her lawyers moved fast. They cited public humiliation, reputational damage, and irreconcilable differences. But the truth was much simpler. Richard was no longer the man she had married. He was no longer untouchable, and Victoria had never been the type to stay when the power shifted. She demanded a significant settlement, a portion of his assets, full custody of Brandon, control over several shared accounts. This time, Richard did not fight. He had spent years tearing Lena down in court, using lawyers as weapons. Now he sat in silence as his own empire was divided piece by piece. By the time the divorce was finalized, the mansion was gone. The cars were gone. The image he had built so carefully was gone. Victoria walked away with more than money. She walked away untouched. And Richard was left alone in the ruins of a life he had destroyed with his own hands. Richard's business partners abandoned him. For the first time in his life, Richard Mason had nothing to say. The court ordered him to pay $3.5 million in back child support and damages. He sold his mansion, his cars, his vacation home. He moved to a small rental apartment in Nevada. He tried to contact Lena. She never responded. He sent birthday gifts. She returned them unopened. The Quadruplets grew up knowing who their biological father was. They did not hate him. They simply did not care. Lena used the money to buy a larger house in Marin County with a pool and a garden. She quit night shifts. She started painting. She began dating a high school teacher who loved her children as if they were his own. Michael went to college on a scholarship. David studied engineering. Sarah became a writer. Emily pursued music. They all call their mother every Sunday. They have never once called Richard Mason. But the story did not end there. 2 months after the court ruling, during Victoria's divorce proceedings, a private paternity dispute forced a DNA test that Richard never expected. The results were devastating. Brandon, the son Richard had built his entire second marriage around, was not biologically his. The details of how it happened never fully came out. But for the first time, Richard was forced to confront a truth he had avoided for years. He had never actually known the full story. For 10 years, Richard had destroyed his first marriage, abandoned 4 children, and humiliated the woman who truly loved him, all for a future that had never been real. Victoria moved overseas shortly after the divorce. Brandon went with her, and just like that, Richard lost everything. Not one child called him father. Not one family remained. In the end, Richard got exactly what he chased for years: a son. He just lost the real family trying to get one. Before we go, let us know in the comments. If you were Lena, would you have told him? Or would you have done exactly what she did? I read every single response. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.